two pledges tonight. We'd all stand and face the flag. What's the third call?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now if we'll stand and face the Georgia flag, we'll have the Georgia pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation.
Gentlemen, if you'll remain standing, I have a proclamation to read regarding Confederate History and Heritage Month.
Let me bring my group up if that's all right.
Please bring them forward. I don't know. Should we face that way or there? Whereas our country is a nation of people united by a common history of individual heritage and diverse cultures, and the city of Roswell is rich in the history of the war between the states. And whereas the state of Georgia has long cherished her Confederate history and the great leaders who made sacrifices on behalf of the Confederate cause, including a Roswell mayor who lost his life in Chattanooga, nearby Chattanooga.
That's right.
Whereas the Georgia Division of the Sons of the Confederate Veterans is dedicated to honoring on a statewide basis those who served in the Confederate States of America and educating the general public on Confederate history. And whereas Confederate Memorial Day has long been celebrated in the city of Roswell for more than 100 years. And whereas the month of April bears special significance since it marks both the beginning and the end of the war between the states. Now therefore I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim April 2014 as Confederate History and Heritage Month in the City of Roswell, and encourage all of our residents to increase their knowledge of the role played by the Confederate States of America in our country's history. And with that, I will ask Commander Leake to come forward and say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor.
Y'all can all have a seat.
I think when we do a photo op, I'm hoping.
Well, no, there were plenty of people behind you.
Mayor, on behalf of our camp, we'd like to present you with this sketch done by Mary Jane Warren Stone, a local Roswell artist whose father also was a member of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. We have entitled this picture "The Deportation of the Roswell Mill Workers" that occurred in July of 1864. It's on our monument. You've seen it. This is one of a very limited few that's been signed by Ms. Warren Stone. We appreciate the opportunity to come here today and do this.
Thank you so much. My council would like to join you for a photo, and I will shake your hand.
Commander Lee. Commander.
Thank you so much. Let me stand right here. Didn't the letter say that? The poor women will make a house. Let me take a look at children.
Everybody in here? Okay, I think we're gonna make it. And we'll get a few over here. Just keep smiling this way. We'll get one more, and then I have another camera. Okay, and stay like that for 1 second. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Your
Yes,
Honor.
sir.
Thank you so much.
Honor to have you down here.
We couldn't find any that represented the so we appreciate this Warren Stone. Our favorite part is like mine.
I need to close this with General Sherman's order. He said, I repeat my orders that you arrest all people, male and female, connected with those factories, those are the ones in the Roswell, no matter what the clamor, and let them foot it under guard to Marietta, whence I will send them by cars to the north. The poor women will make a howl. Let them take along their children and clothing, provided they have the means of hauling, or you can spare them. So it was a rough time in Roswell. Next, I have a proclamation to read about International Children's Day, and that's why we have all these well-dressed children sitting on the front row. And children, if you'd come forward as I read the proclamation, and all the other folks in dress, come forward to the microphone. International Children's Day. Whereas in 1921, soon after the Turkish legislature was formed, the founder and first president of Turkey, Ataturk, proclaimed April 23rd as Children's Day and declaring that power rests with the people and the future belongs to the children. And whereas every year since 1921, the children of Turkey celebrate Children's Day as a national holiday with various festivals and programs. And whereas inspired by the Turkish holiday, UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, declared April 23rd, 1979, as the International Year of the Child, and shortly thereafter, UNICEF decided to recognize this important day as International Children's Day, a day of worldwide fraternity and understanding between children. And whereas observing April 23rd as International Children's Day will promote the welfare of children, not only in Roswell, Georgia, but also across the world, as a day of activity devoted just for them. And whereas Americans of Turkish descent in Roswell have played a significant role in the cultural, educational, economic, and civic development of our community, and whereas the city of Roswell recognized many individuals of Turkish descent who have chosen our community as their home and share their rich heritage with us. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim April 23rd, 2014 as International Children's Day and encourage all of our citizens to join the City of Roswell in recognizing the importance and the future of their children. And it's wonderful to have all these children here today. Did any of the children have anything to tell us today? This is your celebration. I want to hear from the adults. I want to hear from some of the children. Yes, you can do this.
You go just we celebrate. Okay, you go. Can go. Okay, you go there.
There's a microphone. Just use the microphone right here. First of all, tell us who you are. I'd like each of the children to come to the microphone and introduce themselves.
Gaye Aydın.
I need to hear from everybody.
I'm 9.
So that's wonderful.
Ahmet John.
John, good to have you here today.
Ahmet John. My name is Sinan.
Sina.
My name's Eileen and I'm 9.
Come here.
I'm Essa. I'm 7 years old.
Tell your name.
My name's Aisha and I'm 7.
Okay, come here. Okay, hold on.
Amca. Squished up.
Your name is?
Efe.
Okay.
That's all.
Right. It's good to have you here. My council would love to get their picture taken with you in your beautiful outfits. If you'd join us here in front of the dais.
Honorable Council and
Yes.
the city, as Turkish American Cultural Association of Georgia, we have been celebrating this International Children's Day event in Metro Atlanta last 25 years or so. And children from Roswell area has been in events almost every year, representing the Tolbert Yilmaz School of Dance. And thank you for your recognition and having the children here. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
for bringing this celebration to Roswell. If you'll come forward, my council wants their picture with you.
Come on.
Kids in front. Kids in front.
Here's my kinfolk. Wow. I felt kinfolk. I see.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. I'm having trouble getting all that out. April 13th to April 19th, in association with the National 911 Education Month. Whereas in 1967, the President's Commission on Law Enforcement and Administration of Justice recommended that a single number should be established nationwide for reporting emergency situations. 1 year later, in 1968, the AT&T announced that it would establish the digits 911 as the emergency code. And whereas the 911 system is the connection between the eyes and ears of the public and the emergency response system in the United States, and is often the first to know emergencies of all magnitudes, making 911 a significant homeland security asset. And whereas in 1986, the City of Roswell went live with our first 911 system, Roswell 911 Center currently has 23 dedicated personnel consisting of communications officers, training officers, management of a Georgia Crime Information Center. And whereas the safety of our public officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephoned the City of Roswell E911 Communication Center. And whereas public safety telecommunications are the first step and the most critical contact of our citizens have with emergency services, and often provide a lifeline to the caller where seconds matter. And whereas the City of Roswell's 911 staff is proud to support their mission statement in their everyday lives, which is, our dedicated employees provided excellent service utilizing life safety instructions through best practices in the public safety communications industry. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, Mayor of the City of Roswell, do hereby proclaim the week of April 13th to April 19th, 2014, to be National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Roswell, Georgia, and ask all of our citizens to acknowledge and honor the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and our citizens safe. Les, gentlemen, would you all stand, ladies, with the E911 system and all our folks in blue, if you'll stand up. Let's give them a hand. Chief Rusty Grant, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. I began my public safety career many years ago at the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office as what we called a radio operator at the time. It was actually before you would dial 911 to make an emergency call. Back then, when I was hired at the Sheriff's Office, they said, you know, there's the radio and there's the telephone, and that was pretty much the training that I had. The official training was all on the job. Today, though, there's some state requirements. There's a basic communication officer certification that all of our communication officers have. Additionally, we require a certification of the the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch, Emergency Telecommunicator, Emergency Medical Dispatch, Emergency Police Dispatch, Emergency Fire Dispatch, CPR certification, GCIC certification. We also train them on the NIMS training through FEMA. Also, best practices in response to missing and endangered children through the National Center and Missing and Exploited Children. So today they go under quite a bit of training and certification, and they are true public safety professionals and do a fantastic job. Any emergency response that we have at the City of Roswell, the 911 Center and the communication officers are the backbone of that response. Earlier this year, when we had our snowstorms, many of these communication officers actually slept at the police department for 2 days because they were afraid if they got home they would not be able to get back to provide the service to the city. So they stayed and had that just a tremendous dedication. Also, they'd want me to let you know that in 2013 they answered over 84,000 emergency telephone calls. So they did a tremendous job, and I just want to share with y'all in recognizing them today.
Let's have one more hand for those gentlemen. And I think my council would love to get their picture taken with you also. They love a photo op. How do they love a photo op? If you'll come forward, please. Thank you. One more hand for the 911 folks. We lost two. Do I have a motion to approve the nomination of Chris Foley to the Planning Commission? So moved. Motion by Councilman Orleans. Is there a second? Second by Councilman DiPolito. All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilman Orleans to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second by Councilman DiPolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions regarding the consent agenda? Yes, sir. Come forward. If you'll give your name and address, please, before you speak. If you'll fill in a speaker card before you leave tonight, we would appreciate it.
Mayor Wood, Council, Lee Fleck, Martin's Landing. Is it, I just need to know, is number 6 on the meeting agenda covered with this consent agenda vote?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
I would like to request an explanation of number 6 and reserve the right to follow up with a question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mooring, are you the person to address that?
No,
Michael Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is in regards to the opportunity for the city of Roswell to be able to identify assets within the city, which could be events, could be facilities that would be marketable based on the city's agreement and the city's goals and vision of what we want to do with our assets, to be able to put these together, to go out and work with public partnerships, to raise funds for the city, and also bring out those corporate partners that want to be a part of the community to work together in that regard. So 33 North is a company that will work with us to put these packages together to ultimately come to the market to be able to work with other partners.
Mr. Fleck, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
I don't know what he didn't answer. I'm talking number 6. The approval of the mayor and council to sign a contract with the Water Tower Partners for consulting services to develop a sponsorship program in the amount not to exceed $39,000 and approve a budget amendment authorizing the use of general funds. That's what I'm asking.
It's a marketing program. Any specific questions?
That is actually the name of the company, Water Tower Partners. It's not Water Tower. They are reaching the people under the Water Tower rather than going out with major events like Super Bowls and NCAA tournaments, the corporations want to reach the people that are under the water tower, so their name is Water Tower Partners. I'm sorry, the company that's doing it is 33 North Sports.
So this has nothing to do with the water towers
No, sir.
associated with the water plant infrastructure?
No, sir, it does not.
Thank
I'm so
you.
sorry for that confusion.
Does anyone else have any questions regarding the consent agenda? All in favor that, yes, Councilmember Price.
Well, I was going to ask for that one to be extracted from the list, and also number 7.
So 6 and 7 are off the consent agenda. We'll put those, 6 goes with Ken Eigelhart under Admin Finance. We'll call it as part of his agenda. And 7, would that also be Admin Finance? And Kent, if you'll address those two when it comes, you'll be the first one we'll call. So we're voting on items 5, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So any further discussion about those items? All in favor of the consent agenda items 5, 8, 9, 10, and 11? Raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Kent, we'll turn to you.
All right, well, I guess we'll just go ahead and jump in with number 6 to get started on that. And of course, Mr. Fisher just sat down, but he just gave us the basics. But so that it is clear for everybody that it is not related to a water tower.
Correct, that
maybe
is right.
Try a basic explanation again without people understanding what it is, and it's not related to water.
Sorry, I understand the
Let me just
confusion.
get it down. This has gone to the Rec Commission, correct?
Correct.
And what
I'd have to have.
Rec Commission is recommending we go forward with this as an opportunity to raise revenue by getting some sponsors.
And they understand what we're looking at in cooperation with the vision of the city. It's not going to be just plastering names everywhere, but it's going to be a cooperative effort with us in the facilities, not just recreation, by the way.
So
There are
we'll be
other
working with
facilities.
corporations and other folks in marketing to try to leverage Roswell's brand in a tasteful way.
Correct.
To work with sponsors.
Correct.
And this is they'll be reviewing what the opportunities are and coming back to council with recommendations.
They will do an asset inventory of the marketable items that we may have along with events and facilities. They will put those packages together. They will look at the market and see what's available, and they will come back to mayor and council before any partnerships are made.
We do have a representative here tonight if we have questions.
We do if you have any questions.
Councilmember Price, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. In the packet, it breaks out Phase 1 and Phase 2. It looked like Phase 1 goes between April and June, Phase 2 goes between July and September, yet in the contract, it looks like they run concurrently, and there's one price for all of those activities. So I just want to clarify that what's in our packet and the contract make sense together.
Mr. K. Love.
Councilmember Price, yes, they do. Part of what's in the contract is the payment schedule. The amount for the scope of work, let me make sure I got the dollar amount. The $39,000 is for both phases of the scope of work, and then we will be making partial payments. So there may be some activities running concurrently, but that is Water Tower Partners' estimate of the project timeline. And Kevin Bryant is here if you'd like for him to address the specifics of the timeline.
Well, it just, in the materials they provided us, it indicates that Phase 2 begins in July, ends in September, so that's no longer the case?
I think it would be appropriate, Mr. Mayor, if Kevin Bryant
Kevin,
could come
if you'll come
address that,
forward,
because they
please.
provided us with that information.
Do you understand the question?
Yes, sir. We are going to run those phases concurrently. We just felt like that we've been at this a while, and we felt like it was a good time to go ahead and start looking at the target list along with your assets. But we are not going to make any pitches or presentations or even a phone call until mayor and city council agrees that this is something they want to move forward with. So that may be a little confusing. I understand that. It was going to be a 6-month project. It's now a 3-month project. And so our job is to really just make sure we know how to aggregate the assets, price them, get ready to go to market. If you do want to go to market, then we would like to have a very well thought out target list put together. So we won't go see Coke until you say go see Coke. We won't go see a bank until you say go see a bank. We want to make sure that our corporate targets are in line with what you're trying to do as a city.
So then is there a phase 3 that we don't know about yet?
Well, there's obviously the selling, but we really haven't gone there. We really just wanted to focus on understanding the assets since it's something so brand new. It's not brand new to a lot of cities that are doing it successfully. So we felt like that it was a good idea just to come in the way we're coming in and make sure that you understand what you do have and what your assets are and how to price those assets.
Okay, and there was one other question I had regarding travel, because you did indicate that you're local and there's no anticipated travel because that would be over and above this contract.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. I mean, I think when you start working on these type of projects, sometimes you run across something that's a very good opportunity. And so our thinking that if there is a good opportunity and we do need to travel, that it would be approved beforehand. We're not just going to travel and send you a bill. It would all be approved before we ever travel somewhere.
And who would make that approval?
Well, it depends on the amount. I assume Kay could approve a small budget number.
Small.
But
If they're going to Gainesville, Kay could probably approve it. If they're going to Paris, I think it'll come to council.
Okay, and just given the timeframe that, in their proposal, it was going to end on September 30th, and in the contract, it indicates that we'll end on July 14th, but we have our final payment on June 30th. I would suggest that our final payment be upon completion of the scope of work.
So you're proposing an amendment to the contract?
Yes.
Does that create any issues?
not for us, no, sir.
We don't have a motion yet, so we could incorporate that in the motion. Any other questions or suggestions?
You ready?
If you're ready, Councilman Eichelhardt, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
All right.
I think we have another question from the floor before we go on. Is that a question? Yes. Yes, sir. Come forward. If you'll give us your name and address.
My name's Bill Muscarella, 278 Spring Drive. What's the ROI on this project?
Well, given that it's speculative, we do not know specifically. We would hope that the return would exceed the investment by many-fold, but we have no experience in this, and it depends on who we can attract. So there is no, we have no prior experience.
Well, the company should be able to give you a pro forma. I mean, that's a normal business procedure. I mean, why would you spend $39,000 that you don't know what you're going to get?
Well, I'd say it's a fishing trip. Sometimes you go fishing and you catch them, and sometimes you don't. But we believe that we have a lot to offer in Roswell, but we do not have a projected return on investment.
Well, then why don't we get some other cities who have done this already and see what their ROI is?
Well, that's a possibility if this council wishes to go that route.
Just a thought.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your thoughts. Other questions? Do we have a motion?
I will move for approval for the mayor and or city council to sign a contract with Water Tower Partners not to exceed $39,000, and approval of budget amendment authorizing use of general fund operating contingency with one amendment to the contract that the final payment of $13,000 change from June 30th, 2014 to upon completion. that's the motion.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That passes unanimously.
Second item is the approval for authorization to transfer $78,000 to the Roswell Convention and Visitors Bureau for the contract with North Star Destination Strategies for the branding initiative.
Thank you, Councilmember Eichelhart. This is the agreement with North Star Destinations for the branding initiative that was put into the FY14 budget. There was $80,000 budgeted for the project. Convention and Visitors Bureau handles the procurement of this following the procurement policies of the city. They went out with a RFP. They got responses from many different firms, and they evaluated those responses. They came forward with the recommendation for North Star's destination. I believe there was a presentation that was given to council back at a committee meeting or work session in regards to their process. And this is formally asking just to transfer the money from our budget, the approved budget, over to the CVB where they can use it to close out this contract or close the deal with North Stars to have the work done for the branding initiative.
Does any council have any questions? Do we have a motion? Councilmember Price.
Well, earlier we heard of requests for the CVB for monies for next year. So is this considered to be an addition to monies that they appropriated from the city this year, or is this completely separate?
This is money that was included in the FY14 budget, and we are just appropriating
For
or
the
approving
CVB or?
for CVB to do the branding. So we're just doing the transfer now because we did not transfer the money.
I think Kay wants to clarify this.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mr. Fisher. This is being administered by the CVB Executive Board, not the CVB Tourism Program of Work. So part of what will be happening with this contract, the $78,000, North Star Destination Strategies will be developing a plan that will include marketing, branding, all the initiatives related to that, some surveying work, building upon the work that's already been done with visioning and branding that we have done. So to find out where particular markets are, what the community's thoughts are related to our brand as it stands now and where we might be going. So there will be an implementation plan that will be provided as a deliverable as part of this. The funding that the CVB has requested in their 2015 budget is something for the mayor and council to consider. Is that premature? Would you prefer that the whole branding, marketing strategy be developed and implemented and that a part of it? One of the things they will look at is how we're leveraging current money being spent for marketing and advertising citywide, which a CVB is a component of it. We don't control the individual line items. We control the group or categories such as advertising. We don't dictate where and how they advertise. So that will certainly be a discussion for you related to CVB's budget request, but it is separate and does not have anything to do with this transfer for the contract.
Other questions?
Make a motion to approve this authorization for $78,000 to the CVB for a contract with North Star Destination for branding.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Eichelhart. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Oh, Councilmember Price, are you opposed? That is 5-1. Councilmember Price opposed.
Then moving to item number 12, the actual initial agenda item is the approval of resolution to provide for the regulation and issuance of the 2014 series bonds. And I also hope let Mr. Lee tell us about the good news from today.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have for you tonight is a bond resolution for the regulations and issuance of $4.94 million in aggregate principal. This is the second series of bonds. We issued the first series last April. Just to remind you, our true interest cost last April was 1.27%. And tonight, what I'm going to present to you is a term of 10 years for this series of bonds with a true interest cost of 1.579%. It's about 30 basis points higher than we had this time last year. The average life of these bonds will be 5.553 years. Just as a point of pride for me, we 5-year Treasury was 1.61 today on the market, so we were trading below the Treasury today.
So our credit's better than the United States government.
Correct. Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir, it is.
Of course, I don't know how good that is, but
it means our credit risk is less than the United States government. Also in the market today was Windsor, Connecticut. They're also a AAA city, and they had a $5 million issue, very similar to ours, and their true interest cost was 1.73%. So we were better than our peer cities as well. But this resolution I'm asking for you to approve tonight will provide for the terms of the bond of being 10 years again for the assessment of taxes to pay these bonds back. And they will mature in 2024.
Does the council have any questions? Do we have a motion?
Move for approval of the resolution.
Motion by Councilmember Eichelhardt for approval. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
This time we'll call upon Liaison of the Public Safety Department, Councilman Jerry Orleans.
Thank you. The item we had on the agenda tonight, item 13, which was a second reading of the noise ordinance, I would like to move for deferral on this till the second Monday in May. We've had some feedback on it and had some meetings with different parties of interest and making some changes, and they were not ready to come back yet tonight. So I'd like to move for deferral on this item.
So motion for deferral by Councilmember Orleans. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Nguyen. Is there anyone here tonight who came to hear the noise ordinance and have any comments on the noise ordinance? I see no hands up. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion? Yes, Councilmember Diamond.
Were we going to bring this to committee?
Yes.
One more time first?
Yes, any
Okay.
changes will be coming to committee, I believe, on the 30th.
Okay.
Before coming back to council.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll hear from Liaison to Community Development Department, International Traveler, Councilmember Becky Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it was a long flight back, so glad to be back home. They always say that you got to leave it to miss it, and that's definitely true. I didn't miss Roswell. But anyway,
Councilmember Wynn has been suffering through Italy and Europe for 3 weeks.
yes.
So, she's in a hardship tour, but she's back.
And I'm not used to not having my wine at night, so you have to forgive me on this one. The first one is, goodness gracious, if I can read. I haven't driven a car in 19 days either, and that was really fun doing that again. RZ 201303065 with concurrence variance 201303066 Azalea Drive Townhomes, Azalea Drive, Jason Yao, Metropolitan Design and Construction. Land lots 378, 379, 380, 381. And Mr. Mayor, they have asked for a deferral of this item.
Are you making a motion for deferral?
Yes, sir, and I'm not going to put a date on this if it's all possible, because we are waiting for an ARC application under review and Army Corps of Engineers and a variance to the stream buffer. So I know that there is. Do we have to put a date on this one for next month? Is that what we're going to do?
Mr. Davidson, do you need a date?
We need a date on this?
For legal
I think
requirements,
there
yeah.
is a deadline for deferral, isn't there?
Yeah, okay, so we have to put a date, so I guess defer till next,
April. May 12th.
May 12th.
The motion to defer to May 12th, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Is there anyone tonight who appeared on this? You will have an opportunity to be heard on May 12th, the full opportunity, but if there's anything you'd like to say tonight, you have that opportunity.
Yes.
Come forward, please.
My name's Bill Muscarella. I live at 278 Spring Drive. If there's some sort of a request for, I don't know exactly what you want to call it, but under the Chattahoochee River corridor, is this plan been approved by the city?
No,
in regards
no
to
plan has
trees,
been approved by the city.
in regards to trees and streams?
To my
And-
knowledge, no plan has been approved by this city. It's been reviewed, but it hasn't come to this council for approval.
Okay. Will their plans show the compliance with the Chattahoochee River corridor?
Mr. Townsend?
That's what we're waiting for. The Atlanta Regional Commission has their plan now, and they're reviewing it for compliance with the river corridor requirements. We're
And how-
waiting for their analysis to come back before they come back to the council.
And how will the public get this report?
As soon as it becomes available to us, we can give it to everybody.
Well, you're gonna mail it to us? I mean, what are you gonna do? Send it UPS? I mean,
You send us your email, we'll send the email out to you.
okay, what address do you need? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any questions, have any comments regarding the Jason Yao rezoning? We have a motion and a second to defer. Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, the next one is CU 201400051 with concurrent variance 201400070 Roswell Auto Imports. On Alpharetta Street, the applicant has, Mr. Rollator has sent a letter to us withdrawing this application without prejudice.
That's correct.
My understanding is that we don't have to take a vote since it was just withdrawn.
Correct.
Okay, next one, CU 2014000527400 Ebenezer Road, Canary Farm LLC. Mr. Townsend.
This is a conditional use located up on Ebenezer Road, approximately 19 acres that is currently pasture property within the city limits of Roswell to be used as a conditional use. It was actually is currently zoned wonderful FCA on our map. The applicant is proposing a conditional use to build a equestrian facility with a barn as well as living quarters on the property. This is the proposed site plan, just showing the barn with living quarters and the riding area in the rear of the property. The rest of the property will be left in pasture as it currently is utilized. Staff recommends approval. The Planning Commission recommends approval. There are 4 conditions included in your resolution. Those are the 4 conditions this evening. The applicant is aware of these conditions and is agreeable to them. If you have any questions.
Just curious, it's a conditional use because it's a commercial barn or what?
Yeah, commercial. The commercial
It's not
state.
a recreational barn, it's a commercial barn.
Correct.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you. Mr. Townsend, this is zoned FCA. The underlying zoning is agricultural?
Agriculture, right.
Agriculture in Fulton County?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Is the applicant here? Or the representative of the applicant?
Yes, sir. Mayor Wood, members of the council, I'm Don Rollator, 11660 Alpharetta Highway, Suite 630, Roswell, Georgia. Bonacera, Councilperson Wynn. We're glad to have you back.
Merci.
We just jumped 2 countries in 5 seconds. I'm happy tonight to be here with Esat Cesar, who is the principal in the application company, the LLC that presents this Canary Farm. I want to make one slight correction because of some comments from the professional staff.
This is a professional equestrian facility. It differs from a commercial barn. Let me make that differentiation for you very simply, and then we'll see if we can get through this. We have no tack store, we have no pony rides, we have no trail rides, and we have no birthday parties. Mr. Cesar's daughter is a dedicated equestrian. Her hope is to present some of her riders in the next Summer Olympics that comes forward. She has championship quality horses. The activities in this barn will be limited to the provision of stalls for people who place their horses there and for expert riding instruction for the people who keep their horses there. Similar to the barns that have been here in North Fulton County since my daughter was that age and I left a small fortune with them. But I did want to differentiate it from a commercial facility because there were some statements from Gene Rarick's people that would have affected this differently. Just wanted to make the differentiation, Mayor. Other than that, I would tell you that we are in agreement with all the conditions proposed by staff. I'm really struggling in how to present this because I haven't been able to develop any argument or any opposition. We had a host of supporters come with us to Planning Commission, and they all wanted to talk. So I'm excited for the city that we can do this. It's part of Dick Stewart's old farm, and Dick had horses here for years and years before he retired to the South Carolina coast. One of its neighbors is Wilson Long, who's the former city engineer, and who was out walking in front of his property when ESSOT came up. And Wilson wound up being his surveyor and engineer for this site. So that's how good the neighborhood support is on this. We look forward to having the opportunity to have this facility for his daughter in the city. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Does the council have any questions? I see no questions.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir. Motion to approve CU 201400052 Ebenezer Road, Canary Farm LLC, with the 4 conditions of staff's recommended conditions.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Orleans. Any further discussion? Yes, Councilman Orleans.
I just have one question. Will we be able to get to watch some of the Olympic riders before they go to the Olympics?
Absolutely. Any further questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. Welcome to Roswell.
That's very exciting. Next one is a final plat 201400504 Forest Commons IMS Forest Commons LLC. Mr. Townsend.
This is a final plat for Forest Commons. It has been reviewed by the city engineer, all of the appropriate departments. Staff is recommending approval of the resolution in your package that approves the final plat so the mayor can sign it. If you have any other questions, the applicant is here representing it this evening.
Does the council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Townsend, I notice on here there's a couple notes that say 5-foot access easement for future sidewalk. And I have 2 questions on that. First of all, we require sidewalks on either side of streets, and that's not the case here. I don't have an issue with the layout. I'm just wondering, how did we get around that requirement in this particular instance?
They're providing on-site parking as well as sidewalk on Myrtle and Forest. Are you talking about the alleys we're asking for sidewalks? Is that
well, that may answer my question. Yes, those are considered alleyways.
Those are right. Those are alleys, which are not correct.
So those don't require sidewalks, but the sidewalks along Myrtle and Forest.
Correct.
Okay. And the second, that answers that portion. The second half of that question is, it says for future sidewalk, are those sidewalks going to be built as the lots come online, or how does that work?
As the individual lots are built.
All right, is that a requirement? Because I think it's important to have those sidewalks installed as part of the development.
I think the city engineer wanted them installed as part of, as each home is built.
Yeah, which is typical. It doesn't show a sidewalk, it shows an access easement for a future sidewalk. So it's unclear.
I'll let their engineer just talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Steve? It's the front door access internal when each of the units will be built, which will then have access to the common space in between. So that's why it's put on there as an easement for each of the individual units to be built at that time.
And to be able to access the kiosk.
And that access then gets them down, is it to the west or the east?
Both.
It goes all the way east and west, and there's a mail kiosk at the one end that they get to.
Right, so it's a sidewalk that will be on private property, and then there's a platted access easement so people can walk on it, since it's not in a right-of-way.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And the HOA will have responsibility for it, for maintaining it and taking care of it.
Okay, it's just different than we usually see it, so I wanted
This
to
has
clarify
been
that.
very different than a lot of things we've dealt with in Grove Way.
All right, I understand. Thank you.
Other questions council may have? Councilmember Price.
Yeah, I'm also kind of befuddled, having not seen this before this packet. Where are the roads? Can someone explain what this is going to look like, or what are we approving exactly?
You are approving 22 lots? 20. How many units, Dave? 22. 22 units, which has two different products, a single-family product and a townhouse product, and they have access to those rear-loaded by alleys. So the units will then face the center public, or not public space, but green space in between. That's kind of the simple design layout.
So all units have a garage,
In the rear,
so on the outer edges, and those are, what kind of alley? I mean, are they,
It's not a public street, I presume.
it's a public alley.
It's a public alley.
Public.
So it's not built with street standards.
The width is not a street width, it is alley width, but it is built to public
So
standards.
the asphalt and the
Right, the sub-base and the
subbase
curbs
is all,
meet city standards, correct.
so it's not designed as a cut-through street, it's designed to serve the rear of these units.
Correct.
so is the city then responsible for them or not?
The public alley, yes.
And what would keep them from being used as a cut-through?
Nothing. Just like any other public alley. Like our East Alley on Canton Street.
Has transportation, just for confirmation, has transportation improved this?
Yes.
So we're okay with it?
Yeah, we're good.
Why would it not just be a private street with an easement for garbage pickup, et cetera?
I mean, you started them as private, right?
Well, you get into subdivision requirements and you've got to have public, you've got to be on a street to have a private structure. Among other things, you really can't have 20 houses served with a private drive.
And city wanted the connectivity between the locations, and this was the method chosen by the developer to provide that public access.
I presume the purpose is to get a narrow street that's not as
Correct.
wide and does not take up as much land. If you really look at the goal of it, it's to make a smaller, narrower street that's alley width rather than road width. Is
Right.
that a fair statement?
Yes.
So are units 1 through 9 detached? They are. So I thought we had to, if you owned a unit, you had to have access to a public street.
That's
So-
why we're taking the
So
alley.
the public alley is that access?
Correct.
Okay. So an alley is a street?
The alley is access to the public right-of-way.
And what's the width of that alley?
The asphalt width or the right-of-way width? I think
Well-
it's 20 feet of asphalt.
So 2 cars can meet?
2 hours can, right.
Any other questions? Councilmember Diamond.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I know this is a local developer who has spent a lot of time making this a context-sensitive. It's a very small area. It could be very easily overrun, and it's got some really interesting pieces to it, and I think it's going to really set the stage for that area. And I just appreciate you guys all working and our staff all working through this, because I know it has not been a simple solution, and I'm excited about how this is turning out, and I appreciate it.
Have we entertained a motion yet? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I concur with that. I think this is an exciting project, and there's some really interesting and new elements, so thank you for all your efforts. I did have a question on the pervious pavers. Has our transportation department had any experience with maintaining pervious pavers?
We actually had a nice, wonderful meeting this morning discussing that with Public Works, Environmental and Transportation, Community Development. We need to create some standard operating procedures as how they are maintained. We feel they have to be, during the construction process, they probably need to be cleaned more often. They're also going to be covered with silt and plywood during construction timeframes so that they don't fill up, as well as afterwards. We're going to create a procedure which will be put into the maintenance requirements then that the HOA may take on related to maybe an annual sweeping out of them. That's something that Public Works, Environmental, and Transportation are working together to give us their feedback as to what would be best in dealing with that. And prior to a home or a lot being sold on this property, we will know that procedure, and that will be put in the maintenance requirements for, you're going to be seeing more of these. I mean, it looks like one of our ways to deal with our stormwater retention and drainage is to multi-use the road in some manner. So we're looking to see what is the best practice to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and you actually answered my second question, which was who's responsible for the long-term maintenance of it. It doesn't say it on the plat that the HOA is responsible for the maintenance, so where would that be?
That's going to be in the HOA documents. They'll be recorded subsequent with the plat. There's a stormwater covenant on the plat now, which identifies it.
It'll be part of the deed records.
Right.
If someone is examining title, they'll come across the covenants, and the covenants will state a responsibility for maintenance. So it'll be recorded publicly.
Right, correct.
So it's recorded in the HOA documents? Mm-hmm. What happens if those expire in 20 years?
Well, it's not, the covenant rights, not particularly the HOA documents, but what did you term you use? There's a stormwater covenant that's dealing with all of the drainage, and that's recorded separately, which will call out the responsibility for the maintenance.
So that lasts into perpetuity?
Yes, with the property.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions and comments? Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, motion to approve the final plat for the Forest Commons IMS Forest Commons LLC.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion? Passes unanimously.
Okay, next item is approval of a license for land use for Roswell Provisions. This item was deferred at the March 10th, 2014 Mayor and Council meeting, and Ms. Wakefield will be presenting.
Yes, as was mentioned by Councilmember Nguyen, this matter was before Mayor and Council on March the 10th, at which time deferral was granted to allow staff the opportunity to bring back a site plan. Staff went out and did a site plan about 2 weeks ago. And what is depicted on this site plan is those structures that include a bench, a small table with 2 chairs, another picnic table, and a table and chairs right against the door. And then there's another small chair and table. Staff's recommendation is that Mayor and Council approve the license for the land use license to allow the structures to remain as shown on the site plan. I did confirm that the placement of the structures, there is enough width between that confirms with the ADA requirements.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember Orleans.
I have several questions and a few concerns on this. Number one, on all of the restaurants that had the outdoor seating permits, how much room have we required for the passageway through there? 5 feet?
That's the sidewalk the sidewalk cafe requirements, 5 feet.
Okay, then and it's kind of what brought me to this. I'm not sure why we're not looking at the same 5 feet here. Now, I understand the pillars are somewhat in the way holding the balcony up. So I can't read some of these dimensions. That one looks like, I don't know if it's 4 feet 9 inches or what that is. Second line from the left that touches that pillar, can you tell me what that dimension is? No, go backwards, go backwards.
Right here?
Yes.
That is, from here to the pillar is 6 feet 1 inch.
Okay, my question is, why are we not looking at 5 feet here the way we're looking at 5 feet everywhere else on Canton Street? I would think we would want to be consistent with what we were trying to do as far as offering a travel lane. And the reason I asked that question is because a couple things that I've seen in action there is, number one, where the little table and chairs is by the doorway, people pull up a third chair and are sitting out into the road, into the sidewalk there. Secondly, where the bench is, again, people are sitting on the bench, so they're facing out into the sidewalk, which cuts into the amount of room for travel there. Now, you can take the viewpoint that they could stand up or move their feet, and then also between the picnic table and the front door, there was a A-frame sign sitting in part of the walkway, which is not on the map site plan here at all. So that just adds another dimension to it. And then there's a small trash can sitting in front of one of the pillars as well. So, I mean, I have some concerns about the site plan and kind of jamming things in there in consistency with the other restaurants and work with the 5 feet. Now, one of the other things that I noticed, and of course this is up to them, is when you go to the end of the building, there is a kind of a little area there that is a dirt area that's not used. So that bench actually could be moved right at the end of the building, parallel still with the sidewalk, but not in front of the building, but next to the building. There's a little area there that it might fit in, or they might have to just extend it a little bit, which is not in the way of the alley. It's kind of back behind that city trash can. So those are just some of the thoughts I have on this, and I think we should try to be consistent on the 5 feet.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Orleans, if we had a license that said that you've got to leave a 5 foot width continuous way of passage, would that meet your requirements?
Yes, sir. I mean, all these things that I mentioned are actually kind of hindering what we're looking at here even. So yeah, if you put the 5 feet, and they didn't encroach into the 5 feet the way they are from what I saw on the street, it would be helpful.
Well, it was pointed out to me that in section 9 that is there, and I guess the question is that 9, I'm looking at City of Roswell license for land use, at all times provisions agrees to maintain the picnic table and benches and chairs to allow at least 5 feet of uninterrupted sidewalk space between the picnic tables and benches and the chairs, and its premise comply with the requirements of the Americans with Disability Act. So it appears to be there. I'm just wondering if we've got 5 feet, we just don't see it on this, or is
According to the site plan, we do not have the 5 feet based on the objects that are there, and then a couple objects that I mentioned were not on the site plan.
I guess could we approve this without reference to the site plan?
If you approve this, and even if you reference the site plan, which is Exhibit A, is that staff will go out and mark off the 5 feet so they'll know where that they can place their structure. And I apologize for looking at this because I read 9, but I only saw the ADA with disability requirement. I checked with the chief building official as to what the law requires.
Well, my suggestion was, rather than having this come back again and again, is to not necessarily approve the site plan, but approve those conditions which would meet Councilmember Orland's suggestion. Councilmember Diamond.
I can't remember which place it was. It seems like there's been more than one on Canton Street where we've had the 5 feet, but it hasn't necessarily been straight. And it looks like when you're in between those pillars, there's a lot more room. You know, if it's 6 feet to the pillar and you go in between it, there might be a little bit of a swerve, but it can't be that much to get to 5 feet. So it looks to me like we actually have the 5 feet along the way, but I'm with you, as long as it says they always have to keep clear a 5-foot path, knowing that it might not be an absolute straight line as it is in other places in town.
I think Councilmember Orland's makes a good point, and everybody should play by the same rules, and I think that's his point.
And I think we get that. I think we get 5 feet out
I think our
of
site
that.
plan may be getting in the way of that. Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Wakefield, about using a site plan, if we don't do it with a site plan, they still would have to abide by the 5-foot ADA requirements, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And another thing is that on number 9, can we put in any objects? Because, you know, the wastebasket, the trash receptacle, the signs, because how I'm reading number 9, it's just the benches, chairs, or tables.
That's correct.
So can we make sure that we broaden that a little bit more? Because I know there's some stores on Canton Street that will put out like a wheelbarrow with, you know, tomatoes in it or something. So let's see if we can broaden number 9 a little bit to make sure that, you know, we cover anything that can be, you know, anything can, just more or less anything that's movable object will have to be, you have to abide by the 5-foot ADA. And another thing, number 6, it says this license does not permit any alteration, expansion, or material change to the use or structure. So how are we supposed to enforce material changes? Does that mean that if the bench is painted red, they can't change it, or what does that mean when it says material change?
No, this is just dealing with the structures that are out there, and thus the reason for the site plan, because it shows the location of the different structures. If this is approved, we can go out there and inventory what's there.
So this is the structure, this is the pillars, this is anything that's permanent or can be moved? Okay. Okay, and this site plan is not to scale, correct?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Price.
Thank you. What's your name? Mr. Mayor. The approval appears to be contingent upon Exhibit A, which could change, I suppose. And I guess we just referred to that as what is material and what isn't. And I believe there's an item that's there that may not be shown, and that's the bicycle rack, or is the bicycle rack in our, in the right-of-way already, or?
I'm not sure if the bicycle rack is theirs.
Well, we discussed it before, and they said don't touch it, so I believe it's, they consider it theirs, I think.
My suggestion would be to approve this with the conditions in it substantially consistent with this site plan, but leave some discretion to staff to how this is enforced. I think you may be getting, if we worry about how many inches it is from this and that, we're going to create more problems than
But we do have to give some direction to code enforcement, because.
Well, that's why I'm saying substantially consistent with this drawing.
We'll mark it off and we'll tell them where they can put their structures and where they can't.
But if we'd like to have an engineer survey, I'm sure that we could go there. Councilmember Orland.
Well, it's not a matter of engineering survey, it's just that it really wasn't consistent with the drawing wasn't consistent with trying to leave the amount of space that is needed. And the license for land use refers to Exhibit A as a drawing, so it's part of the process. And then, as Councilman Price mentioned, code enforcement needs some, just trying to be consistent, so the code enforcement knows what they're looking for when they go out there as well, and they don't add something that's not a concern. So just trying to make it measurable.
I think the 5-foot condition with the American Disabilities Act is sufficiently clear, but that if you'd like to add more, I appreciate it. Councilmember Wynn.
Mr. Mayor, maybe this will help. On number 2 of the license for land use, it says, and I'm just reading, it says approximately in the position depicted upon drawing attached here to as Exhibit A. So it says approximately in the position. So that gives code enforcement that little leeway to make sure that whatever's on there, that it's 5 foot. Is that what you're looking for, Councilmember Orleans?
I'm just looking for consistent 5 feet and items to be depicted where they belong, that fit into that 5 feet mode that code enforcement can follow. That's all I'm trying to get to. Because if you go with the 5 feet, these items that are on this drawing would not fit.
It said, Mr. Davidson pointed out to me, it said approximately in this location, if they have to move a foot or two this way to get to the 5 feet, I think we can accomplish.
Well, no, I mean, a foot or two right or depending how you're looking at it, but looking at the drawing this way, a foot or two right or left doesn't matter. It's the distance between the building and basically the pillars that you got to work with. That's the walkway to go through. And so it's really, obstacles there. You can't, that's why I was suggesting on that bench, it wouldn't fit. If it went down at the end of the building and was at the sidewalk line, it would work. And the table and chairs, I'm just trying to come to what we can have is consistent that can be followed. Otherwise, we have ongoing confusion and not knowing what to expect as we have now.
What if we said this? Regardless of anything in this document to the contrary, plats, surveys, or comments made, at all times, provision agrees to maintain the picnic table and benches and other structures to allow at least 5 feet of uninterrupted sidewalk space between the picnic tables and benches and chairs and the other structures in a continuous path, consistent with the ADA. And then you would have, that would overrule all other provisions, and then you would have an enforceable provision that was consistent with what you've said, which I have always supported. I think you are right on. We need to maintain that 5-foot path. I'm just trying to get a solution without over-engineering.
And Mr. Davidson?
That's totally acceptable.
And then what do we do about Exhibit A?
You still use Exhibit A, but it's still notwithstanding anything, they would have to meet the 5 feet. So this is it's going to be an approximation of where those things would be, but
So
if they don't meet the 5 feet, they got to move.
So it can be approved based on that wording tonight, and then a revised Exhibit A would have to be done showing the clear 5 feet then? Is that the
No,
assumption?
because we put in here that it's approximately where those things would be. If they move, then that's fine. If they don't meet the 5 feet, they might be able to move a foot to the right or a foot to the left to get that opening, like Councilman Diamond was saying earlier, where it is 5 feet. I'm not sure what the distance is.
They may have to cut the bench in half, so it's not quite as long. They may have to make it a very narrow bench for skinny people. There are lots of options.
It's not the length, it's the width and it's the feet.
But we'll word number 9 to where it controls the 5 feet, no matter what Exhibit A says.
Okay. Yes, you're right, that would be, and that would be the open sidewalk going through there, you're right. Because all the other ones are on the other side that we're having the picnic table, and all the other ones provide, a fair amount of seating as well. And they have the end of the building to use.
The bench and the table, those items are the reason that we're really here. Those are the items that they have the heartburn with wanting. Those are the things that they want. It's the bench and the table.
They can have the bench and the table as long as they have a 5-foot path.
Exactly.
But if they can't make the 5-foot path, they can't have the bench and the
Right.
table, and that's why it said, regardless of anything in the contrary, you gotta have a 5-foot path. And that would meet your requirement. And if they can't make it, they gotta remove the bench and the table. Or put it in the alley as you suggested.
Does that work for code enforcement as a basis of them looking at it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would make that as a recommendation to the motion. Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir, we do. I move to approve the land license for land use for Roswell provisions with the following amendments to the land use is number 9, whatever the mayor said.
Regardless of anything here to the contrary.
Yeah, and
You gotta have 5 foot, you gotta have a 5-foot path.
yeah, and so we want to add and other structures in there, but contrary, it has to have the 5-foot path. So y'all can work out the language of that one. And that's my motion.
Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That is, Councilman Orleans, are you still thinking, or are you going to be? That's 5 in favor. Councilmember Price, Eichelhart, Wynn, DiPolito, and Diamond, all opposed.
I'm abstaining to see how this works.
Councilman Orleans is abstaining.
For
It's
further,
it passes
further investigation
with
and to see how this works.
With a vote, 5 affirmative votes and 1 abstention.
Okay. My last one, Mr. Mayor. Approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign a contract with Pond and Company to prepare the East Alley, West Alley Master Plan in the amount of $66,500 and approval of budget amendment 100700101-04-14-14, authorizing the use of general fund operating contingency. Ms. Wakefield.
Yes, this is, as was mentioned, a request to approve a contract with Pond and Company to facilitate the East Alley, West Alley master plan. This matter came forth because there is development pressure on starting with East Alley, but we also know that there will be similar pressure on West Alley as the area continues to develop. There's been some requests, mainly from the Historic Preservation Commission, for quite some time to do a master plan of the area because of all of the developments that come in asking to do things in and around that those alleys. The staff's recommendations that this contract be approved and that the boundaries are study area boundaries are shown on the overhead with the corridors shown in red are the primary focus. The corridors shown in blue are the secondary focus, and that's mainly because whatever happens on those primary corridors, or whatever is recommended, there will be some impact to the secondary corridors. This is a collaborative effort between the Department of Transportation and the Public Works Department that will be looking at all elements related to master planning.
Does the council have any questions? Do we have a motion?
Real quick, so we went from 69,000 to 66.5?
Yes.
Okay, because I remember we had 69,000
Yes.
in there. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the mayor and our city administrator to sign a contract with Pond & Company for the East Alley, West Alley Master Plan in the amount of $66,500.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. Does anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll turn to Transportation Department Liaison, Councilmember Nancy Diamond.
Thank you, sir. This is approval to award a contract to Blount Construction for the 2014 citywide resurfacing project in the amount of $1,069,320, and Mr. Asenbrack is here to tell us about it.
Thank you, Councilmember Diamond. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. One of my favorite times of the year is awarding the annual paving contract. The city, as you know, we look at our streets every year and we rank them according to pavement distress, with our policy being that we pave the worst ones in line. We created an invitation to bid. We received 9 bids. Blount Construction was the lowest responsible bidder. We have done work in the past with Blount Construction. They are a good contractor and they do good work, so we can recommend them to you. The scope of this project includes the deep patching, milling, leveling, resurfacing, and restriping of these roads. The road list is in your packet, but just as a reminder, this is the list of the roads that we'll be resurfacing, and as a graphic, this shows you where within the city limits of Roswell that is, and that's a little blurry to me, but perhaps you can see it better up there. But the bids come in favorably in this case. We're a little over $1 million, and as you can see from the budget that we have $2.7 million. What we are is a learning organization as we approach national accreditation, and what we have learned in our paving funds is that we try to take basically the 2 pots of money that we have every year, which is LIMIG, which is the state funding, and then the city funding. But we try to overmatch the LIMIG, meaning we put more out on the table than we can pave, so that we make sure that we don't leave any LIMIG money on the table. And then we're very conservative with our city funds, and that means that there will be some money left over within our account. And what that does for us is, because the LIMIG funds are not based on the road conditions, but these estimates are actually based on a contractor's evaluations of the conditions of those roads, we have a much higher confidence level in our own city program. So when LIMIG comes in and we get a fixed amount of money based on population and centerline miles, it turns out the road's in really bad condition. Now we've got some money within our paving budget that we can apply towards that and make sure that we're leveraging as much LIMIG money as we can. And then whatever money we have after we complete the base roads and the alternative roads, then we can go back and repackage another bid and go back out on the street for what's remaining in our budget. We feel this is really a good way to manage our money and get the most we can for our resurfacing dollars.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Asenbrack, does this contract come with a 12-month construction warranty?
12-month construction warranty?
Yeah.
12 months, yes, sir, it does.
Okay. Do we
warranty?
I'm just thinking in terms of making sure that the work that they do is, we don't start having potholes within the first 12 months.
Sometimes you don't see things right as they're doing the construction, so things like raveling, which is a pavement distress where there is not enough asphalt cement in the mix and the little pieces of aggregate fall off, you may take months for that to show up. Yes, they are required to come back and repair those areas. And there could be other things, but that's just an example of when they are on the hook to come back and make those repairs.
Right, and that's for, is that a period of 12 months?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. And do we then go back within that 12-month period and check all the roads and make sure we don't have
We
any of
do,
those issues?
yes. So our inspectors go out there and we will mark the roads and bring it to the contractor's attention and then let them work through those. Yeah, and there's not frequently, but I mean, those things do happen.
It's a lot of-
It's a
it's a lot
mixed
of
issue.
mileage,
It is. It's a mixed issue. It's a transportation issue. It's an application issue. The weather could play a part. There's a lot of things, equipment failures.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're
Yes, sir.
inspecting them within that time frame. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Diamond. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Price. Anyone in the audience have any questions or comments? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes.
Thank you.
Unanimously. City Attorney has a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate. Do we have a motion for closure? Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Diamond. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Oh, Rich, talk to Michelle today. I told her I wanted to go to a DRB board meeting to make sure she was